Welcome back to Lost and Unexplained, the channel where we dive deep into the most chilling and terrifying cases, from unsolved mysteries and strange encounters to true missing person cases and more. In today's video, we'll be exploring 4 cases that are truly terrifying and chilling, the kind that leave you questioning what really lurks in the shadows of our world. So sit back, turn down the lights, and let's get into it. Here is the full, detailed, chilling story of the Hinterkaifeck murders, one of the most disturbing and mysterious unsolved cases in European history. This is the complete version, told clearly but without graphic detail. Derelict house, the Hinterkaifeck farm murders, Germany, 1922. Footsteps in the snow, voices in the attic, and a killer who stayed after the murders. White medium star, the family. The Hinterkaifeck farm was a small, isolated property located deep in the Bavarian woods, about 70 kilometers north of Munich. Living on the farm were Andreas Gruber, 63, strict, harsh father. Casilia Gruber, 72, his wife. Victoria Gabriel, 35. Their daughter, recently widowed. Casilia, 7, Victoria's daughter. Joseph, 2, Victoria's son. Maria Baumgartner, 44. Newly hired maid, she arrived the day she died. The family lived far from neighbors, surrounded only by fields and forest. Footprints, strange events before the murders. For weeks, the family complained of unsettling events. Black small square 1. Footprints in the snow. One morning, Andreas found a single line of footprints leading from the forest directly to their farmhouse, but none going back into the woods. This meant someone walked toward the house and never left. Black small square 2. Noises in the attic. Family members heard someone walking in the attic at night. When Andreas searched with a lantern, he found no people, no animals, but hay disturbed as if someone had been sleeping there. Black small square 3. Missing keys. The house key went missing. Andreas accused neighbors or strangers, but everyone denied it. Black small square 4. A strange newspaper. A newspaper appeared on the kitchen table. From a city no one in the family had visited. No neighbors delivered it. No one knew how it got there. Black small square 5. The old maid quits. The previous maid quit suddenly, saying the house was haunted and she felt a presence watching her. The family hired a new maid, Maria. She arrived on March 31st, 1922. She was murdered hours later. Kitchen knife, the murders, March 31st, 1922. On the evening of March 31st, one by one, four members of the family were lured into the barn. Andreas, wife Casilia, Victoria, little Casilia, 7 years old. Investigators think the killer used animal sounds or something to draw them outside individually. Each person was struck with a pickaxe-like weapon. Inside the house, Maria, the maid, baby Joseph, were murdered in their beds. This means the killer murdered 6 people that night. Exclamation mark, the most terrifying part. The killer did not leave. He stayed in the farmhouse for several days after the murders. Evidence shows the animals were fed. The fireplace was used. Food from the kitchen was eaten. Neighbors saw smoke from the chimney. Mail was taken from the mailbox. Someone was living comfortably in the house with the corpses of the family still inside. This is the part that disturbs investigators even today. Man detective discovery of the bodies. After a few days, neighbors grew suspicious because the children missed school. The family didn't show up at church. The farm animals were crying loudly. A search party went to the farm. Inside the barn, they found piles of hay covering 4 bodies. Inside the house, they found the maid and little Joseph. All 6 were dead. Puzzle piece clues at the crime scene. Black small square 1. The weapon, a mattock, a farming pickaxe, was later found hidden in the attic. Black small square 2. Footprints. Footprints came in, none went out. Black small square 3. Locks. Some doors were locked from the inside. Black small square 4. The fire. Someone burned things in the fireplace, possibly evidence. Black small square 5. Feeding the animals. No killer would risk staying days after a murder unless they were familiar with the victims. Brain leading theories. 1. A family member or relative. Some suspect Victoria's husband wasn't really dead from World War I, but this theory has no proof. 2. A former suitor or jealous lover. Victoria was rumored to have a secret relationship. 3. A vagrant or drifter. Unlikely because a stranger would not stay for days. They would not know how to care for farm animals. 4. Someone living in the attic before the murders, most popular theory. Given the noises, the footprints, missing keys, and displaced hay, many believe the killer was already hiding in the attic, watching the family for days, maybe even weeks, before striking. This matches other real cases of intruders living in hidden spaces. What makes this case so haunting? Even with modern forensic retesting in 2007, no suspect was identified. No fingerprints matched. The case remains unsolved. But what people fear most is this. The killer stayed in the house, moving through the rooms while the bodies were still inside. Someone lived in the attic. Someone watched the family. Someone waited. And someone walked into the farm, but never left the same way. They called him the Watcher, a stranger who seemed to know every move the family made and every secret their house held. Now, we will dive into this true event that took place in New Jersey. Are you ready? The Watcher of Westfield, New Jersey. What happened, and what remains unknown, at the infamous house at 657 Boulevard, Westfield, New Jersey. House with garden background, the house in purchase. The house at 657 Boulevard is a 6-bedroom, early 20th century Dutch colonial built in 1905. The Independent. On June 2nd, 2014, a couple, Derek Broaddus and Maria Broaddus, bought the house for about $1.3 million. Their plan: renovate first, then move in with their 3 young children. Open mailbox with raised flag, the letters begin. Horror starts immediately. Just 3 days after closing, Derek found a strange, card-sized envelope in the mailbox addressed to the new owner. Instead of the usual bills, inside was a typed letter signed The Watcher. The first letter began with a deceptively polite welcome, but quickly took a dark turn, claiming the house had been under the Watcher's family supervision for decades, and that now it was their turn. It included unsettling details, referencing the family's car, contractors working on renovations, and even the Broaddus' young children, calling them young blood. Over the next weeks, more letters arrived. The tone escalated. The Watcher criticized the renovations, demanded the family fill the house with young blood, and referenced past occupants and what lay hidden in the walls. Den of Geek. Because of the letters and fear for their kids' safety, the Broadduses never actually moved in. Magnifying glass stiltedrite investigation. Police, private detectives, dead ends. The Broadduses and local police attempted to find the author. One neighbor, Michael Langford, who lived next door, was questioned because the letters claimed the Watcher's family had been watching the house for generations. He denied involvement. The family also hired a former FBI agent to do a threat assessment and a private investigator. Analysis of writing style, EGM/M Broaddus, addressing, double spacing between sentences, suggested the author might be older and literate. In December 2018, the local prosecutor's office reopened the investigation, using DNA found on the letter's envelopes. They canvassed neighbors for voluntary DNA samples. Result: none of the collected samples matched the DNA from the envelope. The identity of the Watcher remains unknown to this day. So, despite police involvement, private investigations, and DNA testing, no one has been charged or identified. The case remains unsolved. Money with wings consequences, selling the house and legal action. Within months of buying, by February 2015, the Broadduses tried selling the house. The price started at around $1.495 million post-renovation, but was progressively reduced since potential buyers were spooked by the letters. In June 2015, the Broadduses filed a civil lawsuit against the previous owners, the prior residents, John Woods and Andrea Woods, claiming they failed to disclose that they, too, had received a letter from the Watcher. The previous owners admitted they had received a single strange letter shortly before they moved out, but had dismissed it as a weird prank. The lawsuit was dismissed by a judge in October 2017. The house sat unsold for years. In 2017, the Broadduses even considered selling to a developer to tear it down, but the local planning board rejected the plan due to neighborhood objections. Finally, on July 1st, 2019, they sold the house for $959,000, nearly $400,000 less than what they paid in 2014. They reportedly included a note for the new owners, along with a photo of the Watcher's handwriting, saying they wished peace and quiet for whoever lived there. Clapperboard cultural impact and media. The story captured widespread media attention. It later inspired the fictionalized horror drama series The Watcher, which premiered on Netflix in October 2022. In the series, many details are dramatized, but the core of real events, threatening letters, an unknown stalker, the 657 Boulevard house, come from this real-life case. Question mark what we still don't know, and theories. Identity of the watcher remains unknown. Despite investigations and DNA testing, no suspect has been definitively tied to the letters. Motive is unclear. The letters suggest an obsession with the house itself, not necessarily the family. The watcher claimed a decades-long family connection to the property. My grandfather, my father, now me. There has been speculation about local neighbors, especially the next-door neighbor, Michael Langford. But no evidence. Some skeptics even wondered if the letters were a hoax or self-inflicted. But no proof supports that. So the mystery stands: a beautiful house, a family's dreams, a stalker's terror, and no resolution. In 1986, a quiet Massachusetts town discovered that the scariest threats aren't always the ones you can see. Daniel LaPlante, later known as the silent intruder, managed to slip into a family's life in ways they never imagined, turning their home into a place of fear and unanswered questions. This is the chilling story of how an ordinary house became the stage for an extraordinary nightmare. Let's dive in. Are you ready? Who is Daniel LaPlante? LaPlante was born May 15, 1970, in Townsend, Massachusetts. He had a troubled upbringing. Reports indicate he suffered physical and psychological abuse from adults, including his father, stepfather, and even a psychiatrist. In school, he was described as a loner. With difficulties learning, he was diagnosed with dyslexia and attention issues, and many classmates found him strange. As a teenager, he began committing burglaries and other minor crimes. The invasion. Hiding in the walls, 1986. In 1986, LaPlante befriended a 15-year-old girl, Tina Bowen. They went on a date, but Tina was shocked by his appearance. He was dirty and unkempt, not as he had described himself. After she rejected him, he apparently became obsessed. He used burglary skills to sneak into the Bowen family's home, a house in Pepperell, Massachusetts, and found a narrow space inside the walls, some crawl space or cavity. He began secretly living there for months, watching the family without their knowledge. During that time, the Bowen family experienced strange phenomena: missing items, rearranged furniture, TVs and appliances turning on off, and more. The girls believed the house was haunted by their deceased mother. They even held a séance at one point. Terrifying messages started appearing on walls, things like, "I'm in your room. Come find me." Some were written in substances like ketchup or mayonnaise to mimic blood. On December 8, 1986, the father, Frank Bowen, returned home to find the family's friend and daughters upset. He searched the house and discovered LaPlante hiding in a closet, face painted, holding a hatchet and wrench, apparently in a state of psychosis or terrorizing performance. He forced the family into a bedroom. Collider. Tina Bowen managed to escape out of a second-story window and ran to a neighbor for help, calling police. By the time officers arrived, the intruder had vanished. Initially, police conducted a sweep but found no trace of him. However, a few days later, when the father returned to the house, he saw a man, LaPlante, staring out the upstairs window. That triggered a second, more thorough search. This time, police discovered small tunnels and crawl spaces built behind walls, hidden passages, and found LaPlante stuffed inside one of those tight spaces. It turned out he had been living in those wall cavities for months. The Bowen family, traumatized, abandoned the house immediately. LaPlante was arrested, charged, and sent to a juvenile facility. Thus ended what some called a haunting, but was actually a very real and horrifying case of an intruder living inside a family's walls. Warning: release, escalation, and the murder spree, 1987. Shockingly, in October 1987, LaPlante's mother posted bail, $10,000, to release him from juvenile custody. After release, LaPlante didn't reform. Instead, he began burglarizing homes in the neighborhood, stealing valuables, guns, ammunition. His stepfather even found one stolen gun hidden in LaPlante's laundry basket. On December 1, 1987, he invaded the home of Priscilla Gustafson, a pregnant nursery school teacher, her husband, and their 2 children, a 5-year-old boy and a 7-year-old girl. According to court documents, he raped and shot Priscilla at point-blank range. He then drowned the children in the bathtub. When authorities investigated, they found clothes and gloves he had used, still wet, hidden in woods behind the Gustafson home. LaPlante was captured after a manhunt involving police dogs and helicopters. He was hiding in a dumpster at the time of arrest. In 1988, he was convicted for the murders and given 3 consecutive life sentences. In 2017, he requested a sentence reduction under a law allowing juvenile offenders a chance for parole after many years. A forensic psychiatrist testified he lacked remorse, and the court denied parole. He remained incarcerated. Brain, why this case terrifies people. And what's real versus myth? What is real/verified? LaPlante did hide inside the walls of the Bowen family home in 1986 and terrorized them. Police discovered hidden wall cavities and tunnels inside the house, where he had been living. He was arrested, sent to juvenile detention, released on bail, and months later committed a triple murder of a family, mother plus 2 children. He was convicted and remains in prison under multiple life sentences. What might be exaggerated or part of legend? Some sensational details about dressing in a wedding dress, performing seances, urine-filled bathtubs, or extremely bizarre behavior appear in various retellings, and are not substantiated by reliable court documents or police reports. Over time, media, documentaries, and fictional adaptations, movie/TV shows, have dramatized parts of the story, so certain versions may include added horror elements for effect. Because of that, while the core facts of terror, invasion, hiding in walls, and later murder are real, some details you encounter online, especially on horror-oriented sites or social media, might be distorted or exaggerated. Ice Cube: The Horror and the Warning. The idea that someone could live inside the walls of your house unseen, spying on you, lurking, is deeply unsettling. The fact that this happened in real life makes the case of Daniel LaPlante one of the most chilling home invader stories ever recorded. It also shows how dangerous some offenders can become if early signs of violence or intrusion are ignored. In this case, initial break-ins and strange behavior escalated into brutal, lethal violence. Imagine a man living in the shadows, sneaking through a stranger's home, hiding in plain sight for weeks. This is the chilling tale of Theodore Coneys, infamously known as the Denver Spider-Man. A story so eerie, it will make you question the safety of your own home. Let's dive in. Are you ready? The Denver Spider-Man, the man who watched from above. On a quiet street in Denver, October 1941, sat a modest little home that belonged to Philip and Helen Peters. They were well-liked, polite, quiet, generous. The kind of couple neighbors smiled at over their fences. But that year had been hard on them. Helen had broken her hip and was confined to the hospital for weeks, leaving Philip alone in the house. He tried to stay strong, visiting her every day, cooking simple meals, and keeping routines alive. He had no idea he was no longer alone. The man in the attic. Months earlier, a starving drifter named Theodore Edward Coneys had knocked on the Peters' door, hoping for charity. Coneys had been a sickly child, bullied for his frailty, and grew into an adult who never quite found his place in the world. He was rail-thin, pale, constantly ill. He drifted from job to job, from shelter to shelter, never belonging anywhere. The Peters had known him in passing years ago, which may be why he felt the house was familiar territory. One day, while Philip was out visiting his wife, Coneys tried the door. Unlocked. He stepped inside, and that's when he discovered it, a narrow crawl hole in a closet leading into the attic. Most grown adults couldn't fit through it. Coneys, weighing barely 90 pounds, could. The attic was cramped and filthy, but to him it felt like safety. Warm, hidden, a place where no one could make fun of him or turn him away. And so he stayed. He started coming down only when Philip was out, stealing bits of food, water, whatever he needed. But hunger turned to desperation, and desperation turned to boldness. Soon, Coneys started creeping out while Philip slept, tiptoeing around the house like a ghost. He would stand at the top of the stairs, listening to the old man breathe. Sometimes he stood only feet away, unseen in the dark. Over time, Coneys began seeing the house as his. Philip was the intruder, the night of the murder. On October 17, 1941, Coneys crept down silently for food, starving after days of rationing crumbs. But Philip woke up. The old man walked into the kitchen and saw a figure, impossibly thin, hair wild, eyes sunken, the shape of someone who looked barely human. Philip gasped. Coneys panicked. He grabbed the nearest object, an iron stove poker, and attacked. The blows were frenzied, terrified. When Philip collapsed, Coneys didn't flee. Instead, he scurried back up into his tiny attic hole, curled into the darkness, and listened as neighbors discovered the body. From above, he heard their shock, their grief. Their theories. And he stayed. The haunted house. When Helen returned from the hospital, the real terror began. She heard quiet footsteps overhead, drawers opening, food disappearing, strange cold drafts, a silhouette moving past doorways. Servants hired to help her refused to stay. Some lasted only a night. One swore she saw a figure duck around a corner. Another heard whispering in rooms that should have been empty. Neighbors wondered if grief had driven Helen to imagine things. Police were called multiple times. Each time, they searched thoroughly. Nothing. No prints. No broken windows. No unlocked doors. The house seemed silent. Except it wasn't. Above them, Coneys would lie still in the attic, holding his breath as flashlights swept beneath him, the beams passing just inches away. He later confessed, "I heard them talk about ghosts. It made me laugh." The final night. Months after the murder, police on patrol saw something odd. A light flickering in the supposedly empty Peters home. They went inside. Instantly, one officer felt the hairs on his arms rise. There was a presence, a feeling like someone was still there. A noise echoed from upstairs. They ran up. Just a second too late, they saw a tiny door snap shut. One officer ripped it open so violently he ripped the hinge off. The smell hit them first, sweat, rot, confinement. And then Coneys crawled out. His body was deformed from crouching in a space barely large enough to lie down. His skin was ghost pale, eyes wide and feral. He looked like something that wasn't meant to live among normal people. The officers later said, "He wasn't a man. He looked like a spider." That's how the papers named him. The Denver Spider-Man. He confessed everything, the break-in, the murder, the months of hiding. When reporters asked him how he managed such a tiny attic, he simply said, "I found a warm place, and I stayed." Aftermath. Coneys spent the rest of his life in prison. Helen never returned to the house. It eventually sold, but locals whispered about it for years. To this day, the case is one of the most disturbing examples of a long-term hidden intruder, and one of the rare times a murderer literally lived above his victim's life. Whenever anyone in Denver hears a strange creak in their attic, someone inevitably jokes, "Better check for the Spider-Man." But the laughter never lasts long, because this story proves something we all fear. Sometimes the scariest monsters aren't outside the house. They're already inside. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more chilling tales. Stay curious and stay safe.